Well, actually, in 1999, Johnny took another position. I interviewed for the position of Academic Services Coordinator for Student Support Services, and I was awarded the position. It was a great opportunity for me because that's when I started figuring out that I was really good at helping people. And I had a supervisor, Sarah Long, who was very encouraging. She talked me into going back to school, so I went on to get my master's degree. Well, not master's, 30 hours towards my chemistry degree at ASU. And then when she retired in 2007, I became the director of of Student Support Services. From that, we had a little, things changed here, and they did a little, it's not reconstruction, but they changed the dynamics of the TRIO programs, and I became the director of TRIO in 2021.
Okay. So for people maybe who are listening who don't really know what student support services are or what TRIO is, can you tell us a little bit about its mission?
Well, actually, we have 3 different programs at ANC. In 1991, ANC got their first TRIO program, which was Educational Talent Search. And it really says a lot about ANC because all of these programs, TRIO programs, are geared towards helping underprivileged students. So we serve first-generation students who meet our income guidelines. In 1991, they were awarded their first TRIO grant, which was Educational Talent Search. Talent Search is used to, as the goal is to increase the number of youth from disadvantaged backgrounds who complete high school and enroll in and complete post-secondary education. So we served students from 15 different school districts in Mississippi County and the Boot Heel of Missouri. And we also serve EPC, which is, I think, Poinsett County. In 1994, they got their second TRIO grant, which is EOC. It is Educational Opportunity Center. The goal of EOC is to increase the number of adult participants who enroll in post-secondary education. Both of those programs serve students from everywhere, which means that ANC didn't just look at how we could get students. They looked at how they could serve people from the community who could go anywhere. Because, you know, the reality of it is if we educate our people, no matter where they are, it helps us all. Whether they come back here or work somewhere else and come back and contribute towards this area where they grew up. ANC had a vision back then, and that was a long time ago. Then in 1997, they got their third TRIO program, which is Student Support Services. And they actually serve 175 students that are actually enrolled at ANC. The goal is graduation and retention and transferring. So, again, it was all about helping students to be better no matter where they went, because even with SSS, we do have students who transfer to different four-year institutions, which is a good thing because we do have occupations that require a bachelor's degree. As you know, one of the biggest things now is that we need educators, and so we need students to start somewhere, and ANC has always been pivotal in trying to help students with that.
And do you have any thoughts about why that's particularly important? Because we are in the upper Arkansas Delta. So can you tell us a little bit about why it's so important, especially to areas like this?
Well, we have a low-income population, and let's be honest, the way I look at education, it is so different. There was a time when people used to say SSS would hold students' hands and they're not helping them and da-da-da-da-da. But I looked at it from a different perspective. We were empowering students. My mother graduated from UAPB, which was AM and N, in 1965. When I went in 1990, she could not help me. Things had changed so much. There was nothing she could help me with as far as getting enrolled. Where do I go? things changed, and she was an educated woman. She had a bachelor's degree, and actually she had a master's degree in English, but there were so many things that changed. Institutions evolve over the years, so even if your parent is educated and they do have the means, a lot of times they can't help you with different things because they just don't know. They haven't been in that environment. Well, my oldest daughter, went to UALR. Things were so much different than they were when I was in school in 1990. So I learned, and the only thing that helped me is that I actually work in higher education. So there were some questions that I knew to ask specifically because I was in higher education. Other than that, I helped a lot of her friends because their parents were educated, but they just didn't know what questions to ask and where to tell their kids to go if they needed some assistance.
Well, and kind of looking at that, how things have evolved. So you've been with the institution for 25
years in November.
And so you've witnessed how student support services and talent search, how these things have changed. Can you talk a little bit about how they have changed since you started?
Oh, well, I would say when I started with SSS, we had 2 computers in our office for students. Online classes were, 3 months long? The same as a semester. We actually had one computer that was connected to those, one printer that was connected to those computers that had perforated paper. So if the students printed and it got offline, they had to figure out how to print it again. You had to rip the paper apart, tear the little circles off the side. Now our office, we have a designated computer lab for the students with multiple computers. Back then we had maybe five computer students could check out. Now we have well over 30. So technology has changed a lot. We didn't have, all of our students had homework on pencil and paper. We used to help them with calendars. Now they use their telephones. We do still have a few students that prefer a calendar, but most of our students don't use just pen and paper anymore. They use technology as something that they use for everything, whether it's their homework, their assignments, listening to their assignments. So it's definitely different.
Would you say technology's played the biggest role in sort of the social and cultural shifts that you've seen?
Yes, it has. I'm still old school, so some things just don't make sense to me. You know, classes that teach social skills online. I just can't see how you're actually learning social skills where you're not being social. So I do have a difficult time trying to understand some of those things, but I know that a lot of our students are busy, working, have families, and it does make it a lot easier for them when we offer online classes or different alternatives for them to complete a class.
So it's about accessibility.
Yes.
And you all offer even support through online as well, correct?
Yes, we do. We have online tutoring. We've had that for a number of years, actually. I'd say at least SSS has had online tutoring for at least 10 years. Some students don't, necessarily like it, but it has always been available. And then during COVID, we even started doing virtual tutoring because we couldn't, students still needed help. So we had to figure out a way to get them the help they needed. And a lot of our students need that one-on-one attention where they can ask a person a question and get a viable answer.
So when looking at the campus, of course, starting in the late 90s, the campus has changed quite a bit, and I'm going to venture to say that you were moved around a little bit. So
yes.
When looking at different buildings and landmarks or features, are there any sort of stories or anything of historical significance that you wish to share?
Well, when I started, we were actually in the L building. Our office, the director's office, was a little closet And then the administrative professionals position, their desk was right at the door, and then we had little partitions to separate it that separated the advisors. And then when they built State House Hall, Sarah was instrumental in designing an office space specifically for SSS. So then we all got our individual offices with doors that close. Because one of the things that we have to think about with the TRIO programs is privacy. Because we talk to students about their educational goals and, address, telephone numbers. Because all of those programs have to report to the Department of Ed on the services that we're providing. So she was very instrumental in designing an office space specifically for SSS. And it made it a lot easier because at the time I was the academic services coordinator, and I would have anywhere from 10 to 20 tutors every semester. It was different back then because students were so willing to come and get assistance even when they didn't need it. So we were always busy, always having students to get assistance in different areas. We learned that quickly back then that we didn't actually have to beg students to get help.
And it's interesting because when I first started at the institution back in 2002, I think, you all were over there, and I remember it was always a social place. Mm-hmm. You're right. There were always students just hanging out, and I know many of them were there for services, but I think some of them were there just because it was a warm environment.
And that was one of our goals. We wanted students to know that they were wanted and that they had a place to come. Our goal has always been to make students feel appreciated. One of the things that we've learned, because as an advisor, you learn a lot about your students. Sometimes people will make judgment, not really knowing, the history behind what that student is going through. I've once had a young man who would fall asleep in his first period class, his 8 o'clock course. But no one knew he was working the night shift at a factory because his mother had cancer and he was trying to help take care of his younger siblings. Some would say that he needed to just drop out. But the way we look at it is that student is motivated to do better. And if he goes to sleep for a little while, at least he showed up for class, because a lot of people won't show up for class if it's raining, if it's hot, if it's nothing going on but something that they want to do. But that to us showed a lot of dedication. And even back then, we had a lot of plants closing. So our enrollment was really high because we had a lot of the factories that were closing. You had adult students returning to school, some afraid that they wouldn't be able to take care of their families, and you not knowing the history of what they were going through at home. Sometimes they just needed a smile or somebody to say, "How are you?" And when they feel confident that you actually care about them, students will share some things you don't want to know, but they will be more likely to help let you know when things are going so bad that they need some help. And a lot of times you can encourage them to stay in school instead of dropping out.
You mentioned, too, the factories closing, because that'll oftentimes lead to waves of people coming in. And they often support each other, but there's also a lot of people who they never thought they would leave the factory.
Right.
That's always been one of the things that stood out to me about those groups, is people who said, I loved my job. I was going to stay there until I retired.
Right.
And so there's all these different emotions and things. Well, Lisa, when you look at the different trends, too, like where do you think students have needed the most support in different areas? Are there certain disciplines that oftentimes require more support? Has that changed? Because we've had, if you look at the last 25 years, we've gone from No Child Left Behind, we've done Common Core, but are there patterns, or has there just sort of been this same kind of consistent needs? Just from your perspective.
I think it's pretty much consistent. Math has always been an area that people struggled with. But I think sometimes they just need to know. My motto is you don't have to like it, but you have to learn it. So a lot of times students just felt like they couldn't learn it. But when given the opportunity to sit down with somebody, especially, and I know people don't, a lot of times the group thing is the big thing now, but a lot of times students don't feel comfortable letting other people know what they don't know. So when they had the opportunity to work with someone one-on-one and they could show it to them and they can answer questions, a lot of those students were very successful. Science has always been one of those things. It's not difficult for me, I would say, but I do understand that it is a difficult subject. So sometimes students just needed somebody to break it down a little more in order for them to receive it and understand it. And English. It's common that we think the way we talk. My mom was an English teacher, so I do write English a whole lot better than I speak it. But there were times when I was in college, there were things that I didn't do so well in because I thought it was I was saying it the correct way, and it was not. And my mom finally told me, forget everything that you learned, listen to your teacher, and do it the way she wants you to do it. Thankfully, I had her to tell me that, but for a lot of students, they don't have that. And so what is right actually sounds wrong to them. So usually those are the subjects. Technical areas, most of our students that are in those areas, they are hands-on people. So those things they get well, but it's usually the math or the science or the English that gets them.
So throughout your tenure at ANC, what are some of the more significant challenges that the institution has faced since you've been there that you've noticed, and can you talk a little bit about how those challenges were addressed or how the institution had to evolve? And I know you were there at a time where COVID, for example, but I know that there's also you were there after the air base closed, but not quite a bit of ways, but
right.
You probably witnessed still some of the anxiety, if I had to guess. Would that be true of that base closure? And
I was actually still in college then, and when I left college, I ended up at American Greeting, so I may have missed that. But the anxiety from losing jobs, I witnessed that. There were so many. We've had grown men and grown women crying. It's often difficult, and a lot of times you take on their burdens, and that's one of the things that we have to educate ourselves on, is not taking on the burden of what the students are dealing with, because it will bring you down. A lot of our students were just afraid. They didn't know, and like you said, they had worked in those factories for years, and it was their way of taking care of their families. And so now you hear it's new to you. During a lot of that time, we had started doing a lot of things on the computers. Mm-hmm. So some of those students they had no idea how to even use a mouse. So it was anxiety for just little things that we take for granted. How to turn a computer on, how to go to Word and create a document in Word or PowerPoint or Excel or whatever. We take those things for granted, but those individuals who had been in industry for a long time, they didn't know. Some of them were afraid to tell you they didn't know. And some of them, even like my mom, I used to tell her when I first started teaching her how to use a computer, the mouse, it's okay, hold it.
Well, you take for granted, too, some people think that everybody has an email.
Correct.
Yeah. I'll just send you an email. And if you
and that they check it if they have one.
Right. Well, so are there any other things as far as, because eventually you will move. I do want to mention that you did move to a different building because there was a new building that came up. So you eventually go from State House Hall to the
Wellness Center.
yeah.
Well, we had some changes in the institution, so talent search was actually moved from the Wellness Center out to Burdett, and then SSS went to the Wellness Center. There were challenges when we moved out there because students didn't know where we were. That year was very difficult for us. We actually didn't meet our objectives for the year because our students they didn't know where to find us. We worked with Laura Yarbrough at the time to get the word out as where we were, where we were off, what we offered, and eventually, within a couple of years, we were back on track. Again, for us, a lot of, like you said, it is social. But once students feel welcome, they'll tell everybody, come on over here. They do this, they do that. They'll help you with this, they'll help you with that. So a lot of attraction that we've gotten has been from student referrals.
And could you tell me just a little bit, not necessarily like specific numbers, but on average, about how many students do you all help in a given year?
Well, SSS specifically helps at least 175 a year. EOC is funded to serve 1,097, and ETS is funded to serve 1,068.
Wow!
So it's quite a few students, a little bit over 2,000 students a year.
Well, are there any other kind of major milestones or achievements that you can think of that kind of help shape the trajectory of student support services that you want to mention?
Well, I think for me, I've seen a lot of things that the college now does that we used to do long before the college started doing it. We were intrusive advisors before intrusive advising was a thing. So for us, it was finding out not just what classes you were in, but it was also finding out a little history about yourself. Because we found that if you put a student in all 8 o'clock classes and they couldn't drop their kids off until 7:45, they were going to be late. And then, there's a frustration with some of the instructors, frustration with the students, because the teacher's frustrated with them. So just learning a little bit about them helped us to help each student. Even when students come to us and ask us, what do you think I should take classes online or should I drive? Well, you give them the options. Do you have a car that's reliable? Can you afford the maintenance on the car? Can you afford to stay over there? Does your family dynamic allow you to move to wherever you're planning to go? Students don't think about different things like that. If you're taking online classes, do you have internet? Do you have a computer that has the programs that you'll need for each of your classes? So a lot of times just helping them to see what their options are helps them to make that decision. And
a lot of those things, you're right. It's very different now than when I first started school, because a lot of times there's an attitude of, well, you can either show up for class or you can't. That's too bad.
Right.
And now there's a lot more push to work with students and find ways to help them and be accessible. And I think it's probably safe to say that you all sort of began that standard and showed how important it is to nurture and support if possible. So we can kind of move on to reflections, but before we do, is there anything else about student support services that you would like to get on the record?
I would. There was a time that I made a major mistake. As an advisor, you check the students' schedules, make sure they're in the right courses, and there was a time that I missed something. A student was enrolled in physical science, and they had not met the algebra requirement. So what I did is I went through the handbook and I wrote down the prerequisites for every class and made a little chart. An Excel spreadsheet is what I did. And Sarah Long at the time, she was like, Lisa, this is great. We all need this. And she shared it with the entire college. And now we don't have to do that anymore because the college has, in the way that we register for classes, it automatically tells you the prerequisite for your classes. And so I think that in a lot of ways, the college has evolved in ways that you just don't even think about. Because that for me was devastating, not having caught that, because I just did not know. But it was a learning experience for me, and it made me think of ways to help me to make sure that students were enrolled in the correct courses. But I think it also evolved into something that helped the institution as the whole. Miss Deborah Parker at the time, she was so instrumental in helping me with the prerequisites for all of the math and science classes, which were the classes that had the most prerequisites. So it was very exciting for me to have in the departments to share that information willingly and not be upset that I was bothering them to ask them about different things.
Yeah. And communication is key.
It is.
So thinking about community colleges, whether it's student support services or just community colleges in general, what do you envision for the future? Because there's a lot of changes going on right now in higher education. So what does the future look like to you?
I think continue to offer diverse pathways for students. We tend to go on these trends, is what I call it. For example, when I was in college, the big thing was to get a bachelor's degree and get a master's degree and you'll get a great job. Well, that ended up with a lot of people with master's degrees and a lot of people with master's degrees and jobs that didn't afford them the ability to pay back those student loans and debt that they were in. And then we lost a lot of individuals, a lot of workers in technical fields and plumbing and construction and just those different areas, day-to-day things that we need, electricians, air conditioning, AC technicians. I think we need to always remember, as a whole, we need people in every area. Even like now, I think the thing is to get a technical degree, but we still need teachers. We still need CEOs. We still need doctors. We still need lawyers. So I think we have to be balanced and understand that no matter what time we are in, we need people from all different areas, whether it's a technical degree or short-term degree where they can start working soon, or it's a long-term degree where it may be a while, but they'll be able to contribute at some point. But let's not go with the trend and just remember that it's a balance, because eventually we end up running out of people that are working in the field because we are pushing for everybody to get in a different field.
Yeah, and in 10 years, it's why do we have so few medical doctors or... Right.
That is true. That's exactly what happened.
We need them, No, I like that. And I'm sure that, you've been with ANC a lot, so you know that we're a pretty innovative college. And so do you have anything else to add about how you think ANC is going to evolve to meet our specific students in this area?
Well, I think ANC showed innovation in 1991 when they brought their first TRIO program. They recognized that we have a population that really needs some extra assistance. Not to say that other populations don't need assistance, but you have a population of people that actually don't have someone at home that is encouraging them. And so when they brought on the other TRIO programs, they thought about, which steps. Okay, I have 18 and older. So let's start working with the kids, 6th grade through 12th grade, helping them to understand the importance of them finishing their degree in high school and going on to higher education, whether it's to be a cosmetologist or to be a welder or to be a teacher. Everything is is significant in our day and time. And so, and then when they brought SSS specifically to help ANC students, they've always looked at the community that they serve and figured out ways to make it more accessible to them, college more accessible, and to help them to stay in school until they graduate. So if we just continue to think like that, I think we'll be fine.
Are there any other particular values or traditions that you hope will kind of endure for the future generation of our students and college students in general?
I think I would love to see dedicated employees, people who are dedicated to supporting students. We have a lot of people that don't just look at ANC as a job, but they are dedicated to seeing people be successful. It's, to me, it's that compassion that helps students to stay on track or drop out. So if we continue to have those individuals that are here to help the students and looking at it from that perspective, I think we'll be great and we'll be fine in the future, because those students always know that we're here for them and that we're rooting for them. And, you know, with all the things that are going on, I believe that helping is a gift. And if we look at it from that perspective, it's a free gift. We can just give it freely and help our students to be successful. You know, I've seen a lot of my students come back and just say, the things that you helped me with helped me when I did this, or when I went to ASU, or just looking at some of my students who are police officers or teachers or principals. It helps you to understand your purpose here, and it's to serve the students. As long as we understand that it's about the students and not us, I think we'll be just fine.
I think that's so well put, and you're right. We can model the way for some of them who need that. Mm-hmm. And so, do you have any other insights that you wish to share with us today?
No,
Ms.
ma'am.
McGhee? Well,
I thank you for the opportunity, though.
Well, I appreciate you participating, and you've really, you really have illustrated how important it is to have supports for students, and how vital it is, especially in areas where community colleges like ANC really do so much to educate and also uplift people, mm-hmm. and give them a chance. So thank you so much for sitting with me today.
Thank you, and you're welcome.